Who's seen the Dukes of Hazzard? Anybody? I grew up on that stuff. Is that not the greatest TV, Dukes of Hazzard in the 18th? You can remember those guys? Michael, this is off your car. Anyway, I forgot my other one. It says 85 Vega. That's kind of cool. Remember those guys? You know, they had the 69 Dodge Charger, just in case you are like a Dukes of Hazzard fan. I'm in the fan club. No, I just looked that crud up on the internet. They used over 300 different cars over the production of that show from like 79 to 85 or something. Remember those guys just Bo and Luke, you know, and they're and how cool it was because they could find just like a small dip in the road and go nothing ever broke. I remember the time my brother and I were driving down the country road, possibly exceeding the speed limit, and we would always, in Oklahoma, you know, so flat, you land a space shuttle at night, you shut off your lights at the intersection because we see the other blinky here, you know, someone's coming, and we went, and we broke all the crud underneath, which I don't know what that stuff is, but it makes it sound like, and then you tell your dad, like, I don't know. What's that? You know, and your dad, my dad is so great, so you just go, huh? What's happening, huh? And we really told him like last Christmas. You actually think I bought that? One time when we were in college, we started fighting inside the pickup, because we're smart that way. And we broke out the back windshield, and you know, breaks out. My brother gets cut on his back, and now we're like friends, and we told my dad, like, I don't know, shut the door. We call that stuff or something. That's kind of crazy. Remember how it is, though, when you're a little kid, you love to get up there on the dash, you know, my kids love to do that. They're driving like crazy like this. And then you go out in the country somewhere and you let your little kids sit on the dash and you let them drive and they're doing this. And what happens? You're like going for the ditch, right? You have to learn that easy on the steering. You know, you can put this thing in the ditch. That you just turn this a little bit, and the whole thing turns, right? You don't need to not driver's ed, but you just realize you can put this thing in this pretty fast if you oversteer. And I saw in the Dukes of Hazzard that these guys always would do like this stuff, and so I'd love, since we're on these, I'm so excited, since we're on these dirt roads, you know, you'd always get into that curve. You probably never did, but you get into that curve, and if you floor it, you know how it is, guys? Ladies like, I don't know. But if you get into that curve and you turn like this and then you gas it, it'll go, whoa! And then you start turning the wheel back this way, you know, and then you turn it back this way and you can really fishtail. And you can do that like 32 times on the way to my house. One time I'm going to Wednesday night church. Do your churches still have that? Mine doesn't. I'm so glad. Anyway. We're cruising to Wednesday night church and my mom made this cake and I'm like, driving this Ford, this white pickup, it has green on top, it's got a 460 engine in it, that makes it big. And I, yeah! And I fishtail, and I hit the ditch and it goes up on two wheels. Life goes into slow motion. You know how that works? Everything gets real slow for a second. And the king goes, takes up that weightlessness into the window. And you get out and you're like, ugh. So I'm picking grass out of the hubcaps. You know? Your first response is not, am I okay? It's like, is Dad going to find out? And remember, you drive like 3 miles an hour the rest of the way. You realize, probably oversteered. Probably made a mistake somewhere. You know, in our own marriages, we typically oversteer. And we make mistakes. I want you to turn to the book of James in the Bible. You may need to turn to the table of contents, that's fine. It's right after the book of Hebrews, right before the book of Speculations. Oh wait, 1 Peter, yeah. Different Bibles, you know, say different things. So if you turn to the book of James, then you'll be in chapter 3. The incredible thing is we're just answering this question about oversteering in life. Remember, we're only going to have 4 words, 5 words to think of here. It's been pretty easy so far, hasn't it? You may be a little bit sore, though, if you've been beating each other up. Not physically, hopefully you haven't. Believe it or not, that's still against the law. It is. And if you're in James chapter 3, let me show you something. In verse 3, it says, when we put bits in the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. And having grown up on the country, we grew up around horses, and you understand that. The bit is that metal piece that you put in the horse's mouth. Now, if you watch the horse whisper or whatever, there's some unique way to do it, but my dad always taught me if you just kind of ram their teeth with it kind of hard, they'll open up their mouth. But you know that even in a really untrained horse, if you can control their mouth and their neck, you can in some sense get control of the entire animal. So you got a great big animal that can be controlled by a very small portion. And it says, or take ships as an example. So it goes from an agricultural environment to a ship environment. Take ships as an example. He says, although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Now, it's not rocket science, right? You've all seen ships and you realize that the rudder's that little thing in the back that, you know, they use language that none of us understand, like port and starboard and aft and whatever, because they want to sound special since they were in the Navy. But they can steer this ship wherever they want to go. So you have two very large things that are steered by something very small. And just like the automobile. It's a pretty large thing, and they're getting smaller as gas gets higher, but nonetheless, it's controlled by something relatively small right here. And you can cause a lot of damage with it, or you can do a lot of good with it. And he says, well, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. And you don't know that. Some of you got a giant tongue. And some of you have like a normal human-sized tongue. But either way, he's not talking about the physical tongue that we have, but he's talking about its product, the language that we end up producing. And he says that's an incredibly small part of us. That we have fists, we have a brain, you have your feet, your knees, all these sorts of things. But he says our tongue is this incredibly small part of us, but that it makes great boasts, meaning it is able to sort of, you ever heard that saying of your mouth's writing checks that your behind can't cash? Right? That it is able to get us in a phenomenal amount of trouble, or we can do great things with it. He says, well, just think about this. Meditate upon, consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. Remember that forest up in Colorado, a forest fire rather, a few years ago? The lady just got out of prison. She was mad at her boyfriend, her ex-husband, and so she set this fire, and then she tried to blame it on somebody else, and it was just like a little tiny, like gopher matches, or those old blue diamond matches, you know, she set that, and then you burn half the state from some little tiny thing that seems innocuous and seems so small, yet it has an inordinate sway over the whole rest of the ecosystem. And he says, the tongue also is a fire. A world of evil among the parts of the body. Now, the Bible never does talk about what ancient Greek thought was this, that said the body was evil, like the physical parts of us were evil, and the spiritual parts were good. So God didn't really care what you did with the physical parts, He just cared about the spiritual parts. This is obviously a man-made religion, right? So go have sex with anybody you want. Obviously, guys figured that one out too, didn't they? Because God doesn't care about what happens physically. He just cares about the spiritual. And so the Bible typically never says anything bad about a physical part of us. But here he talks about a physical part of us, or its product, as having this incredible potential for evil. Tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person. It sets the whole course of his life on fire. And it itself is set on fire by hell. Whoa! That's about as hardcore as it gets when it talks about the product that comes out of my cake hole can change the entire course of my life. Could I make a book or something? Because that'd be cool if you could. It could change everything.